Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Batfeed, your source for all things Batman and DC. Shout out to Buford Butler here on YouTube, who recommended this series. Shout out to Buford Butler here on YouTube, who recommended doing a History of the Robin video. If you guys want shout outs for recommendations in the future, leave your recommendations in the comments below. On today's episode, we're talking about the history of Robin. Batman has a lot of allies in Gotham City. However, the biggest one for sure is Robin, his sidekick. The non-fictional history of the character is that he was created by Jerry Robinson in April of 1940. Robin was created in response to what was going on in Action Comics with Superman, and also to kind of boost the sales of the Batman comics, which it definitely worked when Robin debuted in 1940. The fictional history of the character. There have been numerous people who have taken up the mantle of Robin, so we'll just step through those. Robin number 1 is Dick Grayson. When he was a kid, he and his parents were part of the circus, and their act was as trapeze artists, and they were called the Flying Graysons. They were known widely throughout Gotham for the daredevil stunts and acts that they did, but further along the line, they were being extorted by a crime lord named Tony Zuko, who came in and told them that if they didn't pay him protection money, he would cause problems for the circus. And the ringmaster refused Tony Zuko the money, and as a result, during one of their performances, the two parents of young Dick Grayson fell to their deaths after acid had been put on the ropes they were using on the trapeze. Bruce Wayne was at the circus when this all happened, witnessed it all, talked to the boy afterwards, took him under his wing, and took him on as a ward and eventually the first Robin. Later on, Dick Grayson and Bruce have a falling out. Dick leaves. This is once he's reached adulthood. He leaves and becomes Nightwing, who, while their relationship is rocky at times, is still good friends with Batman. The second Robin is Jason Todd, who actually had an origin story very similar to Dick Grayson's, almost like uncannily, which is why they retconned it. He was a young red-haired boy, part of a acrobatic family called the Flying Todds, and I think much later on DC realized how repetitive that was, so they changed it. So the current day story is that Batman, early on in his career, once Dick Grayson had left, found Jason Todd stealing the tires off of the Batmobile, and was so impressed with the boy that he took him in and raised him with a code of ethics and trained him and taught him how to be the next Robin. The difference between Jason Todd and Dick Grayson was that Jason was very, very unhinged, brutal, and unpredictable, to the point of causing Bruce a lot of problems. He was so reckless that he eventually found himself kidnapped by the Joker and bound up in a warehouse, where Joker beat him repeatedly and brutally with a crowbar, and proceeded to blow up the warehouse, killing Jason Todd. It was one of the moments in Batman's career where he feels he failed the most as a crime fighter. Much later on, Jason Todd comes back as the villain or anti-hero Red Hood, and is currently an ally of Batman and wears a red bat symbol on his chest to represent that. The third Robin is Tim Drake. Tim Drake differed from the other two. He witnessed the Flying Graysons fall to their death, as well as Bruce, at that fateful day at the circus, and it scarred him for life, pretty much. And over time, he deduced who Batman was, his secret identity, and hatched this elaborate plan to get Batman and Robin to reunite, Robin being Dick Grayson, who is now currently Nightwing. He tried to get the two of them to reunite as a crime-fighting team, but became involved in a really dangerous plot by Two-Face, and ended up taking up the mantle himself and becoming Robin, unofficially. He didn't become officially Robin until much later when he earned it in Batman's eyes, and Batman gave him the go-ahead to fight crime with him. Tim Drake's parents were also very much alive. His mother passed away, but his father noticed his son spending more and more time out of the house and coming back with injuries and all sorts of things, so he didn't approve of whatever activity Tim was taking part of, and eventually did find out that he had become Robin, and by default who Batman and Nightwing were, and his disapproval just soared. However, much of this was reconciled in Tim's relationship with his father, but his father eventually died, having been killed by Captain Boomerang much later on. And when that happened, Bruce officially adopted Tim into the Bat family. The fourth and current Robin is Damian Wayne. He's the biological son of Batman and Talia al Ghul. Batman didn't know that he had a son with her until much later in his career, when Talia presented Damian and kind of put Damian in Bruce's care. He was a little rough around the edges because he had been raised and trained by the League of Assassins from a very young age. He was only 10 years old, and Batman spent a significant amount of time training him and teaching him not to kill his enemies, because he has a real problem with that. After all that, he became the youngest Robin, and also is currently best friends with Superman's son, John Kent, or Superboy. He's been through a lot. He's died, he came back with superpowers, he went back to normal. He's been through a lot, and in some iterations much later on he becomes Batman himself, but a much, much darker version of him, who sold his soul to the devil to keep Gotham safe. The fifth Robin, who some people don't know or think about often, is Kelley. Kelley was introduced in The Dark Knight Returns, written and illustrated by Frank Miller, and she is one of my favorite Robins personally, because Batman is retired in the future in this graphic novel, and he comes out of retirement, sparking a lot of controversy and inspiring Kelley to take up the mantle of Robin, because Batman always has to have a Robin. He saves her life, and she takes up that mantle and joins in his crusade. Throughout the continued Dark Knight stories that Frank Miller wrote, she begins to take on more and more responsibilities as Bruce gets older and older. She eventually becomes an iteration of the Batwoman persona and fights crime as Batwoman. We have one honorable mention, too, Stephanie Brown, the daughter of Cluemaster, also known as Spoiler, was Robin for a very brief stint. Tim Drake had temporarily stepped down from the role, leaving a void as Robin, and Stephanie decided to step into that. However, Batman was on a really tough case with a supervillain known as the Scarab, and when she stepped in, she actually made matters worse. She got kidnapped by him and caused Batman to have to let the supervillain escape in order for her to be set free. He actually told her then and there that she should just give up crime fighting altogether, and that he didn't want to see her back out there again, which of course she didn't listen to, but Batman is also kind of terrifying, so there's that. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Batfeed. If you liked this video, like it and subscribe for more content. And if there's anything you guys want me to cover, if any of these characters popped out, you want me to do like a special spotlight video on one of them, let me know. If there are any other characters you'd like to know more about, let me know in the comments, and I'll get to work on making those for you. I want to make the best content that I can for you guys, because I really care about the Batman mythos, and I know a lot of you do too. So let me know, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. All of the links are in the description below. And remember, the night is always darkest before the dawn. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great day.